Hi, I'm here with Madeleine from Nesta, here to talk about the great work they're doing to change the decarbonisation story.
Hi Matt, nice to be here.
Have you enjoyed the show so far?
It's been brilliant. It's so big this year. This is my third time at Installer and it's grown every year. And I think just really get a nice vibe, don't you? It's super friendly.
Yeah.
And it seems like everyone wants to actually collaborate with each other, which I think is just a really nice thing to see coming through.
And we're not going to get the problem solved on our own, are we?
No, exactly. It's a huge market out there, I think. We just need to open it up.
So tell us a bit more about Nesta and the mission.
So Nesta's a charity. We call ourselves the Innovation Foundation for Social Good. Sounds a bit fancy, but basically we're trying to innovate to solve big social problems. And one of the three areas we work on is sustainability, which I lead. And our sole goal in that is to speed up home decarbonisation. So we just want to get heat pumps and other low carbon technologies into people's homes as quickly as possible.
Cool. And so what sorts of thing have you been doing?
Well, we focus on things that we think we as a charity can do that other people might find it harder to do. So we're independent, we can talk to people across the sector, we can talk to government. We're not trying to sell heat pumps ourselves, so we've got that kind of sense of not having so much skin in the game, and maybe there's things that we can, like gaps we can plug that other people can't do. We do quite a lot on public engagement and trying to get people to trust these new technologies, be excited about them rather than be scared of them. So one of our big projects at the moment is called Visit Heat Pump. We've got 300...
What's that called? Visit a heat pump?
Visit a Heat Pump, yeah.
Sorry,
It's been...
Sounds like a good idea. My wife, I'm trying to get her over the line with a heat pump. I think we're nearly there.
Yeah.
And one of the things she said to me was, right, but what do they look like?
Yeah.
Can I see one before I spend money on this thing that I don't...
Yeah, you want to experience it a bit, don't you? And kind of,
exactly.
What does it look like? How much space does it take up? Where am I going to put the hot water tank? We can come to that. What does it sound like? Am I going to be comfortable? And what we found is that people who have heat pumps are really happy to show them off. We've got over, I think, 350 hosts on the site, so people who've already got heat pumps who are willing to open their homes up. We've had, I think, 700 visits booked so far, and then another 1,000 people or so registered. And people are just getting quite a lot out of those visits. And it's funny you mentioning your wife, because when we surveyed the people who visited heat pumps, about half of them took someone else with them. So we think it is a lot of, there's someone enthusiastic and they need to persuade their other half.
Which is fair enough, right? It's an unfamiliar thing. Yeah. So that's a great example of one of the projects you're working on, but there's probably loads more. Do you want to tell us about some of the others?
Well, in terms of getting that appeal of heat pumps up to the public, we've got a few other things going on, and something I'm quite excited about is work with broadcasters. And I know there's quite a few of the exhibitors here who've formed kind of relationships with Kevin MacLeod or other people who are in broadcast. We've been briefing production companies about home decarbonisation, because all the TV broadcasters have signed up to the Climate Content Pledge. So they're supposed to be getting climate content on the telly, but they're worried that people just don't like it. They don't want to be confronted with climate change. It can feel quite negative, like, it's scary, there's nothing you can do. Yeah. We think this area is actually brilliant because there's something very practical you can do. You can upgrade your home. You've got a while to do it. You don't have to do it tomorrow, but starting to think about what that might involve in the next few years, I think is good for everyone. So the TV companies like it, but they really don't know much about it. And home renovation's such a massive sector in TV. It's like...
Yeah, of course, there's so many programmes about it,
Yeah, so we're getting quite a lot of interest, and it would be brilliant, I think, if basically all the home reno shows started talking about sustainability more. It doesn't just have to be those. I think soaps are starting to get interested too, so we start seeing these technologies on the telly. It's just going to make us more familiar with them.
Yeah, it should be normal. They are normal. They are in many countries, right? Exactly, they're massive in Scandinavia and so on.
Says, you've already got a heat pump in your home. It's in your fridge. You don't notice it. It's not scary. It's fine. Yeah.
And so we're at Installer Show. Are there any projects you're doing looking at that side of the problem?
Yeah, absolutely. We've just been working with a couple of installers, so Nathan Gambling, who runs Better Teach, and Emma Bowen, who runs IMS Heat Pumps, to do a big survey of installers, because we wanted to get that sense of what is it that installers actually want. And I think one of the things that's come through so strongly is that installers who are already working on heat pumps want to do more. And I think that's really important because there's lots of hand-wringing in the sector, particularly where I sit in this sort of semi-policy role about how we're going to get more installers, and obviously you're at the forefront of this. Different estimates of numbers, like we're going to need 3,000 more a year, 6,000 more a year. It seems unfeasible. But what we've actually got, I think, is a sector that is growing and where there's additional capacity and people really want to do more heat pump installations. So I think the key thing is, we do need more people coming in, but we also need to take away some of the barriers that's stopping people doing more at the moment. And that's things like access to staff, all the kind of admin and paperwork and the faff that sits around some of the installations, like getting planning permission, and the customer demand. So that's why we're working a bit on the appeal side too.
So this is like lots of great examples of the sorts of thing Nesta are doing to help solve the problem, right? From this unique position. Are there any other projects you want to talk about? I was also, there's probably a million, like the thing is there's so many things you're doing. I guess I was also interested in how you came to be doing this. Like why,
Why this?
Yeah, there's so many things in the world. How did you get into this?
Well, we literally did look at all the things we could possibly do and then and tried to work out what's a big problem that we think we could make a contribution to. So clearly, climate change is the biggest problem we're facing, right? Homes contribute 20% or so of carbon emissions in the UK, so it's a big chunk of those. But we also felt it's a problem that can be solved, right? We do have technologies. We've got really good installers already. We've got, some of the right policy things in place. It's like, okay, well, if we put a bit of extra effort into this, maybe it's something that's a problem that is tractable. So we'll keep working on it as long as we think there's a role for Nesta. And actually, if the sector takes over and it's just, really not needed anymore, then maybe we'll put our efforts elsewhere. But we love working in this area.
Yeah, I can see the passion. What else? What other things would you like to tell us about in terms of what Nesta is?
Well, there's one other project with installers that we're just starting off. We're doing it in partnership with SNIPF, which is the Plumbing and Heating Federation in Scotland and Northern Ireland. And that's about trying to get people who've just trained as heat pump installers to install their first heat pump in their own home. Because we think that if you go from training to doing an installation quickly, then you're going to keep, you use those skills as soon as you learn them. Right? And then if you do it in your own home, you've got, you're going to have that direct experience of having a heat pump, and that hopefully helps you talk to customers and so on. So we're going to try that out, see if that helps get people over that hump from training to being an installer and doing a lot of installs. If that's successful, we'd love that to scale up. So, any manufacturers or government officials or whatever watching this who want to, make that part of what they do, we'd love to talk to you.
So that's people who also share your goal to solve this problem.
Yeah.
And how would they work with you on that?
Well, basically, if we were going to scale this up, someone would need to be subsidising heat pumps for a lot of installers. But
there are people subsidising heat pumps. Yeah.
Exactly. Government's already doing that for consumers, so it shouldn't be impossible.
Yeah. Taking a step back from it all for a second, this is not the first thing you've been doing at Nesta.
That's true. Yeah.
And Nesta's a very weird place.
That is also true.
Nice bunch, don't get me wrong. But why Nesta? Why are you working there rather than, I don't know, you could be in TV yourself making shows or installing heat pumps? Or what is it about Nesta that drew you to work there?
I've worked at Nesta for 10 years, so you're right. I've been there a really long time. I think it's because it's a weird place. It's got, we're really privileged because Nesta's a charity, but it's a foundation. So we've got our own money. That means we don't have to bid for funding. We can do the things that we want to do. We've got that independence. So that does mean you've got a lot of flexibility and autonomy in what you can do, and that's exciting. And then just colleagues are great. I don't know if, you know some of the team members.
I know lots of the team. They're an absolutely incredible bunch.
That's why I really like working.
And what sort of, like, for people who don't know, I mean, even for someone who knows Nesta, it's quite an unusual place.
Yeah.
So what sorts of people are working there? So I guess taking a step back, you're talking about solving the problems that exist in terms of getting everyone's home decarbonised.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Like, also, lots of people watching this will be very practical people. They're installing heat pumps.
Yeah.
It's a very tangible thing. What you're doing is also very tangible, but it's different.
It's different.
How does it work?
That's a good question. Taking a step back, at Nesta we do three main types of work. So we do innovation projects, mainly with partners, where we're trying to design, test, and hopefully scale up new services or other types of initiative. So we have people who are designers, quite a lot of different design backgrounds, industrial design, service design, product design, and so on. We have software engineers, we have behavioural scientists, because we think a lot of this is about just tweaking behaviours or making it easy for people to make pro-social choices, like choosing the green option. We've got data scientists, so we do a lot with data, and people who've got more commercial perspective, so we can try and build these products and scale them up. So things like Visitor Heat Pump is an example of that.
So, and on Visitor Heat Pump, this is a very practical thing.
Yeah.
It's a website called visitorheatpump.org, right?
It is, yeah.
People can just go visit that if they are kind of interested. Maybe they've seen a bit about heat pumps. Maybe they're trying to persuade their husband or partner to get it done.
Yeah, and also if they're an installer, like we think one really good use of this could be for installers to show off their work. So you can't register as an installer, but if you've got people, customers who you think, they'd be happy to maybe open their home up, you can encourage them to get on the site. And you can also refer customers to the site. So if there's people who you think just need helping along a bit, or maybe people, haven't got time to do their install right now, or they're caught up in planning or something like that, it's a good way of keeping them in the process.
Yeah. And it's like not you trying to persuade them, it's just having the conversation with them,
Yeah.
helping them move forward.
Yeah.
And actually just discovering the reality about heat pumps, which is they are great.
Exactly.
They can keep
They're
you
totally
warm, they
fine.
can lower your bills. Lots of people say they're even more comfortable with a heat pump than they were
Yeah,
with their
absolutely.
previous heating system.
Yeah, and pretty much all the hosts would say that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because that's their experience, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you just touched on planning.
Planning, yes. That's
Tell
one of
me
your
about
favourite
that.
subjects too, right,
I'm
Matt?
a big fan of the planning system. So, that's. I guess I was going to ask about that, but maybe more broadly, can you give us an example of a Nesta project that you think's like really moved the dial?
Ooh. Well, I think, we're obviously going to. We're doing this on, what's the date today? 27th. Is it 28th? I don't
This
know.
could be any date.
Any date in June.
I mean, this is
you lose track of time
2024.
here, right?
I think it's 2024.
We're having an election next week.
Right. Okay. Yes.
That's the point. Next Thursday, and we'll have a change of government for sure. And we've been doing a lot of work around policy, so we're really hoping that some of that does shift the dial. I think we'd like to see a new government coming in with some new energy to push forward. There have been quite a lot of policy movements in the right direction over the last few years. So, introducing the grant, clean heat market mechanism is controversial, I know, but I think it's a policy that will help us get towards scaling up heat pumps. But I think we need loads more to incentivise consumers and,
Sure. One of the projects
remove the barriers.
I was inspired by was the kind of turn down the flow
Yeah, right.
thing. Can you share a bit more about what happened with that and like the impact?
Yeah.
I think people just maybe they don't understand what you would define as a success. Like in a business, a success might be, profits have increased, you've hired more people, everyone's enjoying the work. But what does success look like for Nesta?
Well, we do measure success by impact, as you say. The Turning Down the Flow project was a campaign that we ran 2 years ago during the height of the cost of living crisis. Obviously, energy bills were sky high. And we saw an opportunity to help people save some money and some carbon because people were looking for energy saving tips. I don't know if you remember at the time, but every newspaper had 10 things you can do to save energy.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
And we'd been talking to people in this sector, and quite a lot of the engineers themselves have been saying for a long time, boilers run too hot. You don't need to run your boiler at 75, 80, 85 degrees. That means it won't condense properly. It means you're using too much energy. And actually, it's not really a good way of heating your home because your radiators are really hot.
It's uncomfortable.
It's
frankly,
uncomfortable.
yeah.
They're hot, then it switches off, and then they get cold, and you've got this kind of fluctuation in temperature. If you were to turn your flow temperature down, you could probably save some money. You'd be more comfortable. You'd definitely save some carbon because you'd be using less gas. So what we did at Nesta was some research to try and quantify that. We got the Salford Energy House to run a whole range of tests to see what happens when you turn flow temperature down in an average house. Do you save money? What does the room still get up to temperature, and so on? We discovered that 60 degrees as a flow temperature was a fairly good balance because we tested it in kind of wintry conditions, but also spring-like conditions, and it still allowed rooms to get to the right temperature. But it saved about, I think it was 9% of total gas use.
It's a big deal,
Well,
especially at that
can
point
do
in
that.
time.
Yeah, and it's very easy for customers to do. So we created a little online tool that talks you through how to lower your flow temperature if you've got a combi boiler, take you through step by step, whether you've got dials or buttons or whatever. And we just directed people to that. And I think we had over 200,000 people using our tool.
Wait, 200,000 people?
Yeah,
Right,
but also
that's
when we
quite a big
surveyed
impact,
surveyed the population, I think it was, we reckon overall 3 million people might have done it because that was the amount of extra people who said they had adjusted their boiler flow temperature between, I think, October when we launched and March when we did the survey. So that's a lot of people.
That's a huge amount of people, and
Yeah.
also at a time when cost of living crisis, also the Ukraine crisis, pushing gas prices up.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, if you'd done that and you had saved 9% of gas, you'd probably cut £100 from your bills, which is, pretty
Which is vast.
significant.
Yeah, it's absolutely vast when you add, that's 3 million times that. It's
and
a
you're
lot
saving the government, because at the time also the government was topping up bills through the energy price guarantee, so that's us as taxpayers paying for all of that.
Yes, that's a great example of how you've also used all of those different skills to design a process that anybody can follow.
Yeah.
Because it's, you don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah.
It's heating, right?
Yeah.
So if people turn it down too much and then
Exactly.
they can't get warm,
Yeah.
they get ill,
Yeah.
they end up in hospital. So,
Yeah.
you've got to kind of combine all of this very complicated stuff, make it super simple.
And we didn't want people to do it if they didn't have a combi boiler, because there was that concern
Legionella.
about Legionella. We had done a lot of research on that, and we felt it was a very low risk, but nevertheless, some of our partners wouldn't have wanted to get on board and promote the scheme if they didn't think that risk had been addressed.
Yeah, so that's just one of many examples.
Yeah.
I think each of the projects you do has impacts like that.
Just going back to the TV side, we got Martin Lewis picked up on it.
Right.
We called this the Money Saving Boiler Challenge. We had legal advice on that because we didn't want him to think that we were trying to steal a money saving expert. But it was legal. But I think maybe that got him picked up on it, and he mentioned it twice on his TV show. And every time he did that, the website crashed. But basically, I think most of those 200,000 people, or maybe the 3 million, probably down to Martin Lewis. But if you can find spokespeople like that, he wasn't officially connected with us at all. He just liked the idea.
Yeah.
And that's how you can really shift the dial, I think.
I think, from my understanding, Martin Lewis is actually really interested in this stuff and wants to do his bit to save the planet. So, Martin, if you're watching and you want to come on the show, give us a shout. You're always welcome. So, have you heard of Geek before?
No, never.
No. Well, we are mainly into heating, stuff like that.
And you're geeks? Yeah.
Trying to become geeks, yeah. No, so you know Geek?
Yeah, I know Geek really well.
Okay, so what do you make of us?
Well, see, you guys are brilliant. So Adam and his Heat Geek show was something that I watched as soon as I started getting into this area, because it's so informative, and the way that he presents it just gives you loads of information. I mean, I like the consumer-facing ones, but I also really like the installer-facing ones, because,
Get nerdy.
Getting nerdy is something I really enjoy. And then it's been brilliant to see Heat Geek grow over the last year, and this stand is amazing. It is the best stand, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It's the best stand.
It's the best stand.
That's very kind.
But it's great to see the ambition, and just scaling out from training, going into installations, all the partnerships that you've launched over the last few days. It's really exciting, and I think you're helping to sort of, convene the sector as well and lead the way a little bit. I was very excited by the launch of the mini store, because that's something that consumers really worry about. Like, where am I going to put my hot water tank? So just kind of picking off those problems one by one and solving them, I think is really exciting.
So what's your advice for Geek? How can we become more successful in what we're trying to do?
That's a great question. Work with Nesta.
Yeah, that sounds good. What should we do? I was speaking to Ollie, actually, on a serious note.
Right.
I think there's tons we could do to help.
Yeah.
Our whole mission is about enabling and empowering small businesses, business owners, heating engineers around the country, to go from gas to heat pumps and then grow their business. And obviously Nesta knows loads about that as well. And it'd be amazing to join forces to make that happen, because in the end, they're the people we're all relying on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing I really like about Heat Geek is the focus on installers. That really sort of strong focus on, we're going to work with people who are already in the sector, we're going to skill them up. But you've also been such a strong advocate for quality of installations. And I think that's, again, filtering through to others and trying to drive up standards across the industry.
Yeah, because fundamentally, my missus is not going to have a heat pump unless I can tell her she's going to be comfortable. She's an osteopath. She wants her, she's like, I care about the planet and stuff, but my business relies on my patients coming into the home and actually being able to get comfortable, feel warm when they, they have to take their clothing off to kind of have a treatment. So, it's like, it's not negotiable.
No, it's fundamental, isn't it?
Yeah, it's totally fundamental.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you come across Heat Geek?
I think probably found Heat Geek online initially. So, it would have been Adam's YouTube channel, I think. But it's such a great brand, isn't it? I think it's something you want to be part of, I want to be a Heat Geek.
Well, we better get you a T-shirt then. That's the least we can do. Have you got one already? No.
No.
What are we doing? I can't believe you definitely give you a T-shirt. And Dave is the legend behind the brand.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's something that you want to be part of, isn't it?
Yeah. And we also firmly believe it's a team game, solving climate change. Like, we're tiny, it's only 20 of us, and we're just trying to help all those other small businesses grow.
Yeah.
But open to working with anybody, obviously.
So have you had a good show?
It's been great, It's been really, really good. It's been quite a few late nights, quite a lot of chats, as you can hear. I'm doing my Barry White. But yeah, it's been amazing to meet everybody, and there's a real shared kind of ambition, isn't there?
Yeah.
It feels also like this is the moment. It's finally starting to come together.
Yeah.
And the uptick in interest in heat pumps, the amount of people installing heat pumps, the new models coming on the market, and as you said earlier, like everybody going, happy to work together on this.
Yeah, exactly. There's a sense of momentum, isn't there?
And shared purpose. Yeah, exactly. And it's really, really is growing, which I think is a lot down to places like, Nesta have done a huge amount on this. I remember when I saw Nesta get into this, I think I've mentioned this to you before, I was like, oh, finally we've arrived. No, because, it's a complex problem, and you do need organisations who are thinking about it in that quite unusual way that you think about it, in terms of like, what are the problems, how are we going to solve them, how are we going to bring different types of perspective together to bear down on this. Yeah. Okay, but getting into the things you don't want everybody to know. So I know that you guys are very friendly with various civil servants and people in the kind of rulemaking,
right? Yeah.
Westminster elite.
Yeah.
Tell us, have you got any view on how seriously they're taking this, and whether it's here to stay or a bit of a flash in the pan?
I think it is here to stay. I would say that. I mean, that's what we've been saying.
Well, no, let me rephrase it to you, give you a bit more context.
Yeah.
So yesterday we were talking to various people on the stand. We had various panel discussions, and there were installers asking questions.
Yeah.
One of the questions they had, which is totally fair enough, I think, is they said, I remember with solar panels, there was a feed-in tariff. It was a thing, people learned, and then learned how to do that, and then it just disappeared. So is there going to be any stability, do you think, in the kind of focus from government on home heating and decarbonising home heating?
Yeah. It's a great question, and I can totally see people's sort of hesitance or slight worry about it, because these issues are getting a bit politicised, and we've seen that in the run-up to the election with a bit of arguing about whether, each party will make you rip out your boiler, and that sense of net zero was an issue that was just a couple of years ago. Everyone wanted to be part of net zero. They're talking about bringing net zero dates forward and so on, and now politicians have started to get a bit nervous about it. So I think it will depend what happens next week. But my sense is that it's very likely to be here to stay. I think that, we're legally committed to net zero, and also to meeting carbon budgets, which are more interim targets on how much carbon we use. There's absolutely no way we can do that without decarbonising heating. And I think that a lot of the issues that we've been talking about a long time in the sector, like whether electrification or hydrogen is going to be the main solution, are starting to be resolved. And I would expect over the next couple of years that to become much, much clearer in favour of electrification. And some of the other things that, again, we've been talking about, like EPCs, like planning regulations, I think will start to be resolved. So I'm pretty optimistic that it is here to stay. The politicians that I've spoken to do understand what's at stake. It is politically difficult, let's be honest. They're worried about, coming across as if they're telling people what to do. Intervening in people's homes is always politically sensitive. So the more that we can do as a sector to make that feel easy and just the obvious option, the easier it is then for politicians to do the right thing. But I think the commitment's there.
Yeah, it's here to stay. And also all of the things that currently make it difficult, there's so much effort going into making it easy, right? So if you were to list some of the issues, some things that make it difficult, do you think some of those things are going to disappear in coming months?
Yeah, years? Actually, when I'm in conversations with people in politics or in the civil service, and the kind of the regular things that come up, like, do you need a lot of insulation, or where will people put their hot water tanks? Those, we're starting to just have answers for that. We're like, well, the mini store is a great example of that. It's like, okay, well, if we can have a tiny hot water tank, that just alleviates people's worries almost immediately. So, the more that we can just, overcome some of those problems by new innovations, tweaks to existing technologies, I think that's going to give the people who have the decision-making power more confidence to go ahead.
Yeah, and the hydrogen thing is a thing. I think, speaking to some installers, they're kind of, certainly in the past, at Leicester, I've not heard a single time this installer show, but historically, people have gone, I'll just wait for hydrogen, that'll happen.
Yeah.
But what's your view on that?
I think it's a non-starter.
Why?
Because so let's take one step back. I can see the arguments for it from a consumer perspective, because switching
it sounds great.
It sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Should be easy.
Unicorns sound pretty cool.
They also
There's
sound
lots
cool.
of good things that sound good,
But all the research that's been done on hydrogen by anyone who's independent, including recently the National Infrastructure Commission, has just said at a system level it's going to be way more expensive than electrification, and that's because using hydrogen to make green electricity to make hydrogen and transport it to people's homes is way more inefficient than using green electricity just to heat people's homes directly with heat pumps. So why would you ever do that? And you also have to keep running a gas grid and upgrading it while keeping running an electricity grid and upgrading that. So the overall system costs are way higher. And I think the risk is if we did go the hydrogen direction, we just end up using a lot of fossil fuels still, because it would be so expensive to create green hydrogen. We'd end up using hydrogen made from gas or coal, which is not very green. And, effectively we're just locking ourselves into fossil fuel use. So I can't see that happening.
Yeah, so teleporting machines, time travel, they sound great.
They sound good.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah,
But
jetpacks, I'd like a jetpack.
I'd love a jetpack.
Yeah.
I really would love a jetpack. Maybe you could start working on a jetpack.
For next year.
But they're impractical.
Yeah.
They're commercially
Yeah.
impossible,
Yeah.
and therefore they're not happening at scale.
We need green hydrogen for decarbonisation
Sure.
for sure, but there are just so much better uses for it than heating homes.
Yeah, that we'll be able to pay more for it as
Yeah,
well, like
exactly.
heavy industry,
Yeah.
aviation,
Yeah.
agriculture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, look, thanks so much for coming on. Lovely
Pleasure.
to see you here,
Lovely to
and best of luck with everything. If people want to learn more about what you're doing, how can they find out?
We're at nesta.org.uk, or you can get in touch with me. I'm madeleine.gabriel@nesta.org.uk. Madgabes on Twitter. Really happy to chat.
Thanks very much. Have a good rest of your installer show.
Thanks, Matt.